Sing Talk. This is Sing Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sing Talk Radio. I am excited about our episode today, but before we get to that...
Before we get to the exciting part, let's talk about my wife.
Let's talk about the people who are just here. Joe Batance, our friend. Joe.
Hello,
Say
how
hi,
are you?
Joe.
Hi, David. How are you?
And my lovely wife, Shannon, who couldn't be further away from me right now.
Hello.
Hi. And our very, very, very special guest, who I'm really excited about having here today, Judith Hill. Judith.
Yay!
Many of you know her from RuPaul's Drag Race.
That's right.
Yeah. One of the judges.
Well,
Yes,
anyway.
one of the judges. It's my day job.
Only a reference to earlier conversation. But I'm really excited to have you here, and I want to chat with you about your journey and about... There's very few people on this planet that's had the extraordinary journey that you've had for all of its amazingness and all of its challenges. And I think singers out there probably can learn just a ton by hearing your story and hearing your side of things and what you've gone through and all that good stuff. So let's start... I don't know. Where should we start? Well, I met you. Let's start about how I met you. So I met you through Daniel Bedingfield at Soho House.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And we had kind of crossed paths only because I sat in the back of the forum and watched you guys rehearse a little bit. But
We were singing? I can't remember.
Maybe you weren't up there. I don't know.
Oh,
I was
maybe I
watching the
wasn't.
band.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So Judith was, sort of featured on the This Is It tour and in the movie This Is It, and was going to be a awesome, massive, experience. And of course, we all know where that went. Mm-hmm. But how did that happen for you? Let's start there, and then I'm going to work backwards into who you were coming up to that. But let's talk about. Should we start with that?
Okay.
Because I could tick off about 20 boxes where I want to go and.
Yeah. Well, it was an incredible experience working with him, Michael. He was just brilliant in every way, as we all know. And it was just, I was just a kid that was in LA getting a job at Guess.
Really?
Clothing store
Yeah.
about a week before I got that gig. And it was just one of those things where I was singing around town doing some open mics. I met some musician friends and they were like, hey, you're really good. Why don't we, there's Michael Jackson's holding an audition for his big world tour. Do you want to audition? And I thought it was kind of like a joke or well, okay, that's a long shot. But
Your
sure,
first gig
I'll
is
be
with
like,
Michael? Yeah.
I'll be like the thousandth, like the girl, where there's a long line of people auditioning with a number. I thought it was going to be one of those,
American Idol.
Yeah, American Idol style. And so I was like, sure, why not? Go try it out. But it ended up being a very, very small audition, kind of like a personal experience where, they were like, Michael's on at the time it was MySpace. He's on your MySpace page, change your picture and all this stuff. And it ended up being him picking me, and it's just a small batch of people. I went to audition, and next thing you know, the next week, I quit my job that I had just got hired from.
Were you disappointed that you couldn't keep it?
I was like, I'm good with. I have another job that's coming up.
You went in. Guess what? Where I'm not working anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And the next week, I was, on rehearsals with Michael, singing duets with him, and just getting my mind blown every night.
Holy crap. Yeah. Totally. So we go from there into how amazing this is and then how it ends.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys work together on that, Dave?
No. I mean, my experience was very, very different. I sat in the back of the forum in this hallway and next to his dressing room, and I would sit there for hours, and then he would either show up or not. Most of the time, not.
So you didn't interact with the other singers?
No, so I would just go and sit waiting. I would just go and sit watching the stage and Kenny Ortega and all that sort of do their thing. But, I mean, that was my experience, and it was sort of drive to the forum going, it was terrible. Anyway, that was my experience.
Yeah.
But, so,
yeah.
do you want to go further with that? Or?
Oh, man, that was just... It was one of those life-changing experiences where it was a turning point in my life where I realized there was so much more to being an artist, and he was definitely the school of the greatest, and so
Totally.
it was beautiful to be a part of that, and I met so many amazing people from that. I'm still in touch with like Dorian Holly and all
Who
the
is
guys.
just a special person.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all really incredible. Sometimes I see the dancers. We cross paths every once in a while, and just like a family. It's bittersweet.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So where are you from? Tell us your upbringing.
I'm from North Hollywood. I was born
Oh, really?
here.
Wow,
LA girl.
Exotic.
I know, right? Yeah. I wish I could say I'm like, but no, but I love LA actually. I've always it was all I actually ever knew as a kid, and then as I'm growing up, and I realized what a special place this is.
Yeah.
Like there's so much wonderful opportunities here. It's so diverse. Can't beat the weather. So
That's why people come here on vacation and never leave, and therefore it's crowded.
yeah, exactly.
So tell me about your vocal development? Did you start really young, and were you singing
Yeah.
through school? And
Yeah, well, I sang early on because my parents are both musicians. So I wrote my first song when I was 4 years old with my mom, and my dad was there too to record it.
what was it about?
It was a
lyrically?
gospel song.
Oh, right
It
on.
was
Okay.
called "God Is Made," and I still have the recording of it. It's really like
Can we play that right now?
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I bet that's adorable.
It's really I sound like a 4-year-old. So,
so
but
cute.
it was my first thing, and my mom, she always tells the story of how I was in the back seat of the car singing at that age, and she was like, "Oh wow, Judith has a voice," and she's the one who encouraged me to sing. So they got me started very young. I kind of went into it a little bit like kicking and screaming, I would say around like 7 or 8 years old, because it was like mom and dad is making me do this kind of attitude.
Yeah, because
But
you
then-
wanted to go and play
Watch Stardom.
Barbies.
yeah,
or-
exactly. But then I realized how much of a blessing it was to have parents like that who truly, I mean, to this day, my parents are deeply involved in actually they're part of my band.
And isn't
Right
that
now.
amazing?
Are
I
they
think that is
really?
so great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh my
it's Judith Hill and the
gosh.
fam, and so I've grown to really appreciate my parents and the upbringing that I had.
What do they play? What are your...
My mom is a keyboardist, and my dad's a bass player.
Right, okay. They both sing as well?
No, they don't sing, but they actually they can hold a part.
Yeah, okay.
I get them to sing some parts sometimes.
Did you gig around town with your parents? I mean,
Yeah.
like secular gigs, not...
Oh yeah,
gospel?
yeah. Early on after I graduated from college, I did a run of shows in LA. This was like the first thing that was, it was like real small bars and things, and we would invite people down there. So we did that, yeah.
And where did you go to college?
Biola University.
Oh, you went to Biola. Okay,
Yeah.
right on. Okay.
Yeah.
And so especially like, sounds like growing up in a gospel community, going to Biola and stuff, why did you choose... Did you never consider a gospel career?
I never really I actually did write some gospel songs when I was younger. We did have some music that was that, and then I just kind of came into my own and started writing my own music. And
Right.
it wasn't a choice of any sort of that I wasn't gonna do gospel, or I was. It was just I just started writing songs about life.
So, and then it just happened to be more secular.
Yeah, well, I find all my songs to be gospel songs because it's like from the heart of what I'm about is spiritual.
Right.
I don't particularly write like religious lyrics, but that doesn't change the fact that who I am is who I am, and what I believe is deeply a part of my music.
Awesome. So tell us more. So I want to keep going down this road of this journey. Not just as you as a singer, but you as an artist, the formative moments. I mean, clearly a Michael Jackson, This Is It moment is a very formative sort of experience. I mean, the level of people you're around and all sort of stuff. But, that wouldn't have happened if there wasn't a series of those leading up to it, right?
Yeah, well, it was kind of like a diverse plate of stuff that happened before that. My first real gig as a singer was the Michel Polnareff French tour. I was in there France for a year. This was before Michael. This was before Michael. And so I did stuff like that. I went to school and studied as a composer for film, things like that. And that was that was my love. I loved that when I was in college. So orchestral work and all that stuff was just like really exciting for me. And then I was a session singer. I did some stuff in LA. So yeah, it was a bit of a different collection of experiences before.
Tell me about your session work like.
It was everything from actually, before Michael or after Michael? Because I did more.
Yeah. I'm
just
curious
general.
about the whole thing. So
I would do things for films. I liked Disney or Pixar, DreamWorks films, or movies. Like as a session, or be part of the choirs, and those are always fun, like reunion
right,
sessions.
totally.
I haven't done sessions since I've been working on my solo stuff, but those are always fun. I loved.
How do those people who brought you into those sessions, how'd they find you? Were they through?
That's a great question. I think one session led to another.
Right, they usually do, but
yeah, the initial
unless they
start,
don't.
Exactly right. Great, it was great. We'll never call you.
Yeah, don't call us. We'll call you. Kind of like the gas company.
Yeah, right. Family friends started out. I knew, my parents knew some people because they're both musicians, and so they hired me, and then I think from there were recommendations.
But I mean, moving especially into Pixar or Disney
Yeah.
or some of those, I don't know if you work with Chris Montan or some of those people, but I mean,
Well, there was just more of like vocal contractors that I had made relationships with, and once you make a relationship with a couple of them, they'll call you for
the good ones,
the
yeah,
good ones,
right.
and so you keep good relationships with the vocal contractors, and that's kind of how I got some of the bigger movies and things like that.
Is that so? Tim Davis, have you worked?
Yeah, I
with
did
Tim,
a little
or-
bit with Tim. Mhm.
So I don't even know who are the vocal contractors for the Disney and the Pixar stuff anymore.
Oh,
but-
the DreamWorks stuff. I was working a lot with Edie Boddicker, and she did she was kind of one of like the main contractors I did. And then there was like a once you get in, I was working with John Powell, and he was one of the composers, and he was doing like the Lorax and Happy Feet and all these things. So he just kept calling me.
Yeah,
Once you get
totally.
in with the composer, and then you just keep calling you.
because you're easy to work with.
Yeah,
He knows
and
what to
so-
expect. Yeah.
Yeah, and you work with some good composers, and then that's how you get movies
Right.
and stuff.
So would you go? I mean, that experience, is that something that you go, oh, I'd love to go back and do more of that in your downtime between your own stuff, or is that like, yeah, it's cool, but
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's always fun, especially when you see the animations and you see your voice. Like those particular sessions, you had to change your voice just a million times for the different characters and overdub a million times to make you sound like, it would be like 5 of us and we would sound like big choir, and all that stuff was fun. So it was fun work.
right on.
Yeah.
So moving on, one of my other awesome surprise moments is when I watched 20 Feet from Stardom, and then there you were, and it was a really great movie.
Yeah.
So tell us about that, because
Oh yeah, that was.
from my perspective, there's all these people and then you, and they all sort of had this. They all come from a certain generation, and then there's you. And so, did that come because of the "this is it" kind of thing, and they wanted to incorporate that, or because I don't know how to say this tactfully. Maybe I don't say it tactfully. You were the odd man out, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I don't know. I met Morgan. I think we were working on it was an Elton John, Leon Russell session for his record, and that's his crew was working on it. We connected, and this producer Bill Maxwell, who was part of that, had recommended me for 20 Feet, and I didn't really think much that it was going to turn into anything. I just thought, what a cool story to follow the lives of singers and background singers. And at the time, I was doing a lot of it. And so Morgan reached out and said, hey, we're doing this documentary. We love to follow your story as well. I said, sure, and it was a really delightful experience. And I think for Morgan, it was about the generations. And at the time, it was like I was a representative. There's so many amazing, great singers that, in town. He just happened to choose me as a symbol of kind of like the newer generation of background singers transitioning into being an artist. And what is that like in 2016? And kind of that was my part of the story. And then there were other legendary singers that coming from the early 50s and 60s.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah.
And their story is totally different. And he just kind of wanted to kind of open it up to all generations, and so
Well, yeah, I mean, it worked. Clearly,
Yeah.
that was a good move.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
what was the girl that we met at the SOS thing?
Yeah.
God, I'm forgetting names right now. Who was the one that sang with the Rolling Stones?
Oh, I have no idea.
Do you remember
Oh,
which
Lisa
one?
Fisher?
No, not Lisa. I would not. Yeah, can't
The,
remember.
the, short,
the
crazy one. She's-
Mary Clayton?
No.
Like she's shorter lady.
Yeah, she's
really
shorter.
amazing
like
voice.
she's
and
like on fire
tons
all
of
the time.
energy.
She's just kind of.
Tata Vega?
Yes.
Tata.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
she's my hero.
Yes.
She's one of the best singers in the world. She's someone that I would study
Can't
her
believe
voice.
I forgot her name, but yeah.
Growing up, and Tata Vega was one of my. I always say it. She's one of my favorite voices.
She is on a different
amazing.
planet.
She is.
She's just the Energizer Bunny, just like
Yeah.
wound up and just.
Yeah.
But she's real.
Her voice is not a joke.
No, seriously. Well, I
not
don't think
afraid.
I don't think anybody in that documentary is not a joke. I mean,
Yeah.
Lisa Fisher's just
Yeah,
incredible.
incredible.
But okay, so you move on through that, and so I guess maybe guide us now through the last, gosh.
We've made it through
Michael,
the 90s. Now
We made it
we're-
through the 90s.
90s.
Yeah, no.
Well, we made,
2010s.
so that was 2000.
Oh.
It was 2009.
2008.
2000,
9.
2009.
2008, yeah.
So 10 years almost, 8 years, 7 years.
wow,
7
yeah.
years.
7 years.
Divided
away from
by
10 years.
square root of 4.
Tell us this, where you're at and what's gone on. And
Yeah, so after that I did The Voice and
Oh,
I
that's
did
right.
lots of other I did a tour. I toured after that with like my stuff, and I had signed to Sony Music at the time and was working on a record with them. And I toured a lot with my band, and we did like opening for Josh Groban and
with your parents?
No, this was
That was a
another
different band?
It was a different band at the time, and that was fun. We just did a year of just touring like that, and then after that, I got into the studio and did my debut album, Back in Time, and then that led me to more touring and promoting it, which is what I'm in the process of doing now.
Okay, so I'm going to rewind a little bit because you skipped over it, and I kind of wanted a little more of your experience from this.
Yeah.
Which is The Voice.
Okay.
Tell us about
The
Which
Voice
you should
was,
have won.
that experience.
No, that was like summer camp actually.
Was it?
It's also like one of those experiences where I have like friends from that show, like Sasha Allen, that I always keep in contact with, and then, but the thing about The Voice that was fun was that it's handed to you. It's so simple because you get wardrobe, you get the band, you get like hair and makeup. It's all like, but every week you get it. Like when you're on tour and you're like on your grind, you don't get like all the luxuries of all that unless you have a big budget. But just like being
Normally, that's
yeah, like
you have to work your way into
like,
that.
Yeah, so like you're not gonna take a big crew when you've got to pay for the flights and hotels, and that stuff costs money. So
Right.
it's nice to just be on a show and like it
Like,
doesn't. You have to worry about it. You just like get to do all that, and you get kind of creative control over the arrangements, which was fun. And singing.
And you only have to
covers
learn
and
one song a week.
I mean, it's like you're sitting there and you just got to focus on one song a week.
Yeah.
And it was definitely like, but not to say that it didn't have its challenges. I mean, it definitely had its challenges. It was
Like,
hard for me.
For example.
Well, you're sequestered, so you can't leave the premises of the hotel, which was insane for me. I'm such
you're
a
like 3
free
blocks from
spirit.
home.
Yeah, I live in Pasadena, and the hotel's in Burbank, and
Yeah.
I was just like hop skipping away from home, and I was like, "What's happening?" And
Yeah.
I got caught like we got caught a few. We were kind of the bad ones. Like we got caught escaping, and like got sent to the principal's office, and like we like barricaded we did all kind of stuff. Like it was like basically like summer
fun, though.
camp. Like it was definitely like the
You
bad
didn't take
kids.
it too seriously then.
Well, we were emotionally like challenged from it because it's stressful. It's a stressful show, and then what's also very interesting is you get to discover who you are to America, which was also the very eye-opening. Psychologically, that show is really interesting because you understand your country better. You understand who you are and your identity. You think you're one thing, until you get on that show and you realize, wow, like my country is this. And I'm from LA, right? That's all I've ever known. I was born and raised here. But you learn that the mentality of the rest of your country, everything in
Very
between
different.
New York and LA is very different from the coast. And so you learn
It's a different country.
it's a different country. And you're learning like everything you do, like what's connecting with these people and what's not, and realizing, wow, I'm like, this is interesting. And then they're trying to figure me out because it's like, you know, with that type of show, they have to put people in boxes.
Absolutely.
You have to fit into something. Like, who are you? What do you mean you're half Asian and black and you're soul singer, but like
You
it's
ain't
like
from
but you're
around here.
funky. Like, sorry, but we got to make this like let's make this a little more simpler, right? So it's
Yeah,
all
totally. Like,
it's all those things, you know, and that show, and that's the same thing you go through when you're signed to a label. It's just with a show like that, it's like all very much there and like crash course.
and it's real time.
real time.
You
yeah,
say
so
something,
can-
and the whole world either hates it or loves it, and you'll know about it.
And it's like amazing what does work, like the simplest things. Like if I go out there and sing like a hymn on Labor Day, I'm gonna be like at the top of the iTunes chart. like it's amazing, like just the simplest things that like time and place and what you do, and it was just interesting to me. I learned a lot. Because
Well,
of
I mean,
it.
that's really like going, you know, a crash course in marketing, regardless of the product.
Yeah.
You just happen to be the product, and that's,
Yeah.
that's one of the things I think singers, when I deal with them, trying to explain to them that you're just a product. Don't get so caught up in
Yeah.
your feelings or whatever, because they don't care. You're a
Yeah.
disposable product.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. You have to think of it as that, and you know, as artists, we're so sensitive, and it's us, right? It's who we are, and so we're like, what do you do? Like, I'm a human being, and then you realize, no, that you are a product to these people.
Yeah.
And
You're a
understanding,
character to them, not a person.
yeah, and understanding your product,
Yep.
understanding your brand. Don't be confused about it, because if you're confused, they're gonna try to create it for you, and then that's when it all goes down south, you know.
Yeah, and especially in today's industry, you have to be so narrow. Your lane has to be so narrow, and singers want to be this, but I also want a little of that, and I want to have my influences are Josh Groban to Justin Bieber. It's like, you know, it's so spread, and you get caught in this problem, which is nobody knows who you are, and it's hard to build a fan base. But going back to your sort of voice experience, because we've talked with a few of the people from The Voice, and then I've dealt with a lot of The Voice singers, and it's funny that this experience you're saying, like it was summer camp, like everything was handed to me. They go to The Voice, and they come out of that going,
Where's my makeup?
"Where's my makeup?
artist?
Where's my band?
Right.
Where's my tour bus?"
Exactly. Like, no, yeah, exactly.
Where's my one song? for the
Welcome
week?
to the real world.
Yeah, and they're struggling with this one song a week, and they're like, "It was grueling." Wait, it was grueling. You had to do one song a week.
One song.
And you had people doing your hair and your makeup, and oh, by the way, around that corner is catering. Go get something to eat. That is not how it works.
No.
I mean, people.
But you came in knowing that. I mean, you came in having already been on the road.
Yeah,
and so
well,
you
yeah.
were like,
but definitely it was like a shock after the show, because it's like I'm on tour, and it's like all of a sudden it's like 10 million times harder, right? You've got all these things that more responsibility.
Yeah.
But you get very spoiled. Like,
Well, and that's the other thing. Like what you're saying is like whether it's American Idol or The Voice or whatever, you're not really responsible for whether that tour is successful or not. You know, they put you on a bus, they feed you, they give you hair and makeup, and if it's successful, great. If not, whatever. And when you're out on your own, I mean, you're out on your own.
You're
and
really, yeah.
So, I mean, Andy Grammer's a good example. I don't know. Do you know Andy? You know that song?
I don't know him, but yeah, I know the name.
He is a good example. I mean, he was in a van for years, like following different acts he was opening for, just driving. And he and his band members would swap driving, times, and shower at the venue, get a little something to eat, and then drive to the next one while the person they're opening for crawls on the bus, drive to the hotel, get some sleep. I mean, he was so juxtaposed, but he sort of earned his stripes. And I use him as an example when I'm working with singers. Like, they just expect roses and limos right now, and it does not work that way.
No, it doesn't. And also the thing about me is like this whole experience that I, like touring and constantly like being in charge of everything is great, and it's totally different from what I used to do when I was background singer, because I was singing for top acts, and you get roses and soft pillows.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about anything but singing your
Do
part.
your job.
The ooh, the alto ooh, and then you get your nice little per diem, and you can go tour sightseeing Spain on your day off, and then you get a nice little hotel room, and it's like, so that is also very spoiling. There's all these things that you realize, like, that's great, but that's not what I want to do.
Right.
And then you really appreciate the struggle, because you're like, well, at least I might be sleeping in a van, but this is where I want to be.
What I want to do.
Yeah.
Well, it does separate those who get into this business and they get a gig like that and they go, this is cool. I'm not going to pursue that. And then there's others like you that go, this is cool, but this doesn't answer the artistic call. And so you literally like, thanks for the SUV ride. I'm going to drive away in my Volkswagen Bug here.
Exactly.
And pursue artistic endeavors.
Yeah.
So not to say there's not amazing experiences that you're going to have, but
right.
you are choosing the road less traveled.
Yes,
So
definitely. And I don't regret a single day of it, because I know at the end of the day, this is where I want to be.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go to the left a little bit here. Tell us about your voice. Tell us about the process of voice training or the voice development, or where you found sweet spots, or where you found your voice, your way of delivering things, your creativity process, your technical process, all that.
Early on, it was listening to Ella and Aretha and Louis Armstrong. I just listened to records all day long, and I loved it so much. And I was also surrounded by some serious singers. Like I mentioned Tata, and like my family, they always had really amazing singers. Rose Stone was a huge influence for me. The Family Stone. Billy Preston was my dad. He was part of his band. And so I found inspiration and real training off of singing and copying these records, and also being around them. I would go to choir rehearsal every week, because my mother, she was the pianist for the gospel choir, and Rose Stone was the music leader for that.
Wow, which church?
It was at Church on the Way. And I was too young to be in the choir. Like, they wouldn't let me be in the choir, but I still came to rehearsals every week, because to me that was school, to see Rose get up there. And there were the Perry sisters. There were so many really great singers in that choir, and that's where I really found myself learning how to sing, really.
Are you an only child?
No, I have a brother.
Okay.
A younger brother.
Does he sing?
He's an aerospace engineer.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
He has his job at Boeing. But actually, he's a drummer. He was our drummer, yes. It was kind of a family affair. He would bang on pots and pans as a little kid.
So he's a rocket scientist and a drummer.
Yeah.
Because that's rare. Usually you just wipe the drool from the drummers and move on.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Any drummers out there, don't get mad.
Too late.
So does he come back and play a little bit with you guys, or?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
Where does he live?
He lives at like Lompoc area, because he works at Boeing at the base there. So.
Colorado?
Santa Barbara.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a base up there.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's also a prison, but
I know about that
base.
part. Yeah. Okay, so creatively, vocally, in the studio, performing, whatever, are there moments you can remember where you went, oh, that's my sound, that's my voice, or was it a slow evolution?
Yeah, it was a slow evolution of just, well, I always connected with, like, vocally, I liked phrasing that was looser. So, anything in the world of jazz or soul or music, I felt like that's what I was, yeah. Pop, like, real structured cadences and where you got to be right in there, wasn't necessarily me.
Didn't work for you?
Yeah, so I mean, I would learn to sing it, right? Because you have to learn. But in terms of who I am as an artist, the freedom.
That's funk from your dad.
Yeah, and that's why I loved Aretha. I loved all the jazz singers, everything like that. And the freedom, I can create my own experience within the verses and things is where I found myself living. And the funk, yeah, you said the funk as always as part of the band, part of the family tradition,
Yeah.
And your brother's in the background trying to study. He's like, God,
yeah,
if I have to hear that song one more time.
right.
Okay, so I'm going to start this, and then we'll edit into this spot.
29, 28, go.
So over the last couple of years, you've worked on a couple projects. Do you want to let's go down that road, talk to us about where that's at and the ups and downs of that? And
yeah, well, my album Back in Time was the main project that I've been. I have another record that I finished in the beginning of this year as well, but the one that I've mainly that's publicly out right now was Back in Time. It's my first debut album.
And that was after The Voice.
Yeah, and that was a rocky road. It was a very rocky road. I was signed to Sony Music at the time. And
Was that a different deal than right after This Is It? Or was that the same kind of under the same tent?
you mean like the...
Because didn't you get signed right after This Is It with the
No,
Sony
I
thing?
never signed after This Is It.
Oh,
I
okay,
just
okay.
worked on music on my own, and I worked with different producers, but I never actually signed a contract after it. I did, however, sign a contract after The Voice. I signed with Sony, and it was a joint venture. It was a mess, basically. It turned into a lawsuit, and there was a lot of stuff that happened, unfortunately. And so my debut album had a bumpy road. We had to go through the lawsuit and work through the settlement before we could properly release it.
Okay. So I was going to move back. Okay,
Yeah.
so when you signed with Sony, they assigned, I mean, you wrote your own album, right? Or
Yeah, I was
co-wrote or
writing my
whatever.
own music. I was working with producers and things like that. And there was a lot of discord and a lot of difficulty at the label with the woman that was running the label.
Okay.
And
So it wasn't through management, it was the label that was the problem.
yeah,
Okay.
at the time it was that particular situation. It was the label.
Okay.
And they
Was it they just didn't have their eye on the ball, or then there was other things?
there were other
and-
things. There was a lot of like creatively they wanted me to do a winter EP to go with Josh Groban thing, but then they
A
decided
winter EP?
yeah, and then
Really?
they decided they didn't want to. We did it, and then they decided they didn't want to put it out. So we
Winter, explain it, like Christmas
for
songs?
yeah, because the tour was happening during the winter, and so
Right.
they figured, okay, let's just do a winter EP rather than the full thing. And it didn't come out, so that was kind of a bump. But then after that, we tried to work on the debut album, and it was getting pushed back. But that's a typical experience of people who are signed.
Totally.
It's going to take a minute.
You're not in control of anything.
It's going to take a minute to get it on order. But it was a lot of other things were beginning to happen at the label, and then it finally was disbanded. So the label was no longer there.
So the sub Sony label.
Yeah, it was a
Was-
joint venture. It was a company that was a joint venture and that did a deal with Sony.
So it was the Sony and who?
Jolene Cherry.
Oh, so she.
It was
oh,
her.
got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it had disbanded, and
And did it disband because it lost funding, or why would they disband?
there was a lot of problems with it.
Okay.
A lot of internal problems. And
just
she
not
actually
having
quit.
a functioning machine, rather.
Yeah, and
really.
she actually left the label at one point and decided. We were all like, what's happening? And then she came back, and then they got disbanded, and we all thought we were gonna be free, all the artists. And then they had this assignment clause in there that was saying like, no, you guys are still
Signed to Sony. and-
assigned to her. Like we were signed
wait,
to
to
Sony.
her?
Yeah, that's what we were like, because our paperwork was with Sony Music. My paperwork was with Sony Music, not with her. And so
This is what happens when I call Time Warner Cable.
yeah.
Same thing. Like,
So it was one big mess, right? And all the artists were trying to get out, and it was a big thing. And there were a couple lawsuits, and one was mine. I just said we were all trying to challenge it, right? And it was difficult. It kind of shut me down for like a big chunk of the year, because what happened is that Prince and we decided that we were gonna write our record and do our record regardless of the drama that was going on at the label. And
Okay, so
you
you're
just
signed.
threw Prince in there casually, like, and then Prince and I.
Well, okay, let's go back.
I
Though.
do
You're
that with John Larroquette. I'm always dropping John Larroquette's name in the
I know. I was.
Night
John
Court.
Candy.
Yeah. So you're signed to Sony. It's a mess, and
It's a
you're
mess.
saying, "Oh, hey Prince, let's go and write another album. Screw
did
these
Prince
guys."
go?
Well, also like, hey Prince.
Yeah, you were just like walking down the street.
Do you call when you're friends with Prince? You just call him Prince?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I met Prince while this was all going on, and we connected. And creatively, we just were really, wanted to write these songs and get these songs together. And he's really one of those people that he has endured so much of this kind of stuff. And his whole mentality is, you stay in there and you do what you're supposed to be called to do on this planet, and it's music. And we're going to get in their studio and we're going to do what's positive and what we want to do, and we're going to make great music no matter what this business tries to hold people down and put artists on a shelf and stop them. We're going to do it. And he was very encouraging to me in that sense. And we did a full record, and we had the best time of our lives doing it because it was so old school. It wasn't this whole like game of like, oh, this and that, we're going to put you in this producer and this and that.
Yeah, featuring this. And
it was like literally we just got in the studio. He got on the drums, I got on the piano. Like we just knocked it out old school, like as if we were in a garage band, and like old school to like record to tape as if it was like 1975. Like he is living in a time warp, and it was so inspiring to me because it was just a reminder to me that that's what I really love and how I want to create music. And so although there was a lot of difficulty during that year, I would say creatively I was in a beautiful place, and I was being inspired to just create. And so that
interesting, that juxtaposition of a lawsuit, which is nothing is darker in this world than that.
Yes.
Listen, to all my lawyer friends listening to this, you guys suck. Lawyers, especially litigators, by trade, look for arguments.
Yeah, well, that's the job.
No, they don't.
But that's such a dark place to live.
And it's an expensive place to be.
It's an expensive, dark place to live. And juxtaposed to that is this thing happening over here. And maybe this thing happened over here better because of that crap here.
Yeah.
It's your escape from that crap.
It was. And there's a lot of heart and a lot of life in this because we were kind of like crusaders against that.
Exactly.
So we were just like
David and Goliath.
Like, like so much opposition.
Goliath and Goliath.
And, don't get him started on Sony and all this.
Totally.
So we were definitely like, we were militant about doing what artists should do, and it got worked out, but it was painful. I mean, we dropped it as a free download, and then there were the lawsuits went crazy.
Went off. Oh, yeah.
We countersued. She sued. Like, it was a mess. She sued him. Like, the whole thing was a mess. And
all for money.
It shut me down. I couldn't move. I couldn't record. I couldn't gig. I couldn't do anything. And it was a very, very hard summer. It was just last year. And
this is like saying to a runner, you can't use your legs.
Exactly.
I mean, that's your identity. Your identity is running or whatever it is you do. And you're saying you can't sing, you can't record, you can't perform.
Yeah.
And it's horrible.
It was really hard for me because I was so excited. It was my first record, my first album. And this was a long time coming for me. It was like my whole life I was
building up to this,
gearing up to release a debut album, right? Yeah. And so at the release of it, all of these lawsuits and like the discouragement of it. And
what did you learn from that?
I learned so much. I don't even know where to begin with that. But one of the things it was very humbling, and it really opened my eyes to, you're doing this because you love music, and if you ever thought you were doing this because you wanted to have a successful record deal and be this, and well, you got another thing coming.
Right.
We're here sitting at home and nothing's happening. So you're doing this because you love music, and that better be the reason that sticks with you no matter what happens, because this and whatever else happens is going to happen, but nothing can shut you down if you know what you're doing this for. And so I think the morale of me, I had to grow so much stronger because spiritually and emotionally as an artist. And, watching him, like, I was like, shouldn't we like be really bummed out right now? And he's like, everything's great. Isn't that, the songs are funky, right? Yeah. They're great. Like, life is great. I was like, life is not, it's like, so I learned a lot, like, and it was just, we ended up performing, and just, it was still very positive from a musical standpoint, and understanding the fight and understanding your strength too, and understanding, don't ever let other people, you got to be in charge of what you're supposed to do here. And I think that is the lesson I took away from all of this. Like, I'll never sign a piece of paper again unless I really understand what I'm signing, and I have a good reason to sign it, and I know what I'm clear about what I'm trying to do.
And who you're signing it with.
And who I'm signing, because, at the end of the day, that is the most important thing.
Well, everybody talks about, I want to get signed, or I just got, I
like
see
that's
people
the end
all
all
the
be
time.
all.
I see people all the time on Facebook.
Used to be the end all be all, though.
Well,
it's not.
No, it never was. I mean, look at Prince changed his name to stop dealing with Warner. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I see people all the time on Facebook or other social media with pictures of them signing and then this big, I just signed a, fill-in label.
Yeah.
And it's like, you
What
just...
social media are you on? None of my friends, they're only signing checks to their landlord. What? What social media? Steven,
just
some
signed.
secret Facebook. People who are moving up like, oh,
It's
Joe.
called contracts.
Yeah. It's called moving forward.
Yeah.
And not to say that that's bad, because there is a time and place for that. Like, labels come in, when they come in, they got to come in the right time, though. It's like, they're just a bank, and
That's all it is.
Yeah, they're a business. They're looking for...
if your products make sense to them and they can sell it and everyone can make money, then great. But if you're at a place where you're not ready for that, you don't sign, because that's the worst nightmare ever. You're going to be like spinning your wheels for years.
But even still, signing a record deal is a loan. And it's
It's
a
a
really
loan, yeah.
expensive loan. It's
Definitely is.
It's around 66% on average loan.
Yeah.
So who's going to sign a 66% loan? Somebody says,
Yeah.
well, hey, we can't wait to fund your house. We're going to give you a mortgage at 66%.
Yeah.
And by the way, when you're done paying it off, we still own it.
Exactly.
That's a record deal.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
And people get all excited, like we've got, like, you got to be really careful. And in today's day and age, there's so many ways to get out there and do what you want to do without having that middleman who has the power, by the way.
Yes.
It's less about money. It's even more about power. I can take your stuff, I can put it on the shelf, and you're not allowed to touch it unless I decide we're going to touch it.
Exactly.
And that's it. You're done.
You're done.
Wow.
That's the moral of the story with them. Yeah.
Wait, so here's my question, 'cause I don't know anything about this universe, right? But with the way technology is now, right? Not that it's easy, but it's a lot easier now to go directly to your audience, correct?
Yes.
So why wouldn't you just do that now? When you have let's say if you I'll give you a good example. When you come off something like The Voice, right? Because then now you have the name recognition, you have a built-in fan base. Wouldn't it make more sense then just to go directly or work in a route that gets you more in direct with the fans rather than with a record label?
Yeah, the thing is about it is just it's a loan. So if you want somebody to pay for some marketing and some expenses, like you gotta if you want to promote something, then that's what the label is like. Okay, we'll spend this much money to promote it.
Yeah, radio promo is still expensive.
But you could be smart and say, I don't want to take a loan and I don't want to be in debt, so I won't ask you to pay for all that when I have to. It's gonna suffer later.
Yeah.
So what happens is when you get limos and roses and soft pillows, you go, I can't believe the label just sent me all this great stuff. Over here on the accounting sheet, soft pillows, limos, roses, and they charge that to you. Mm-hmm. And here's how the accounting works. If it's a $10 million budget, and you've got, let's just round it down to 10 points. You get 10 points on your album, it's $10 million. So they spend $10 million and they start making sales. They keep 90% of it for themselves, and then they keep your 10%. And that 10% goes to pay off your 10 million. And when that 10 million is paid off, then you start seeing dollars. Oh. In the meantime, the record label's just made $1 million, $1 million, $1 million, $1 million. By the time your 10 million's paid off, they've made $100 million.
No, I know what it's like.
And then,
strangely, I do. It's a similar deal I signed with my viral video, where they gave me some money up front.
They gave me 13 cents to start.
They gave me 13 cents. But then what happened was, like, I know they made way more money. And then after a certain point, I was supposed to get a profit sharing thing, which, by the way, I've never gotten any pennies from that. But I'm sure it's written in such a way that I wouldn't. But I see it's similar to that.
You would. I mean, if they sold enough or they made enough money off it, you would. But that's a record deal. The bigger problem with the record deal is that out of your points that everything's being paid off, they decide where to spend money. You're not even in control of how much money that you're charged against. And so, they might be making coffee mugs with your name on it and you get charged for that.
Yeah.
And then again, after you pay that, out of your 10 points, you pay everything back, they still own it.
There should be
You
a
don't even
class
own it.
that they teach about this.
There are.
Dave, that sounds
Like-
a lot like the contract I signed with you.
You don't even get 10 points, my
I
friend.
know. In
Sadly.
fact, I have to
You
pay.
wish.
I paid Dave $25 just to show up here.
It's true.
You're welcome.
In my presence.
Yeah.
Stay on that side of the aura, by the way.
Yeah.
Are you looking at him in the eye, Joe?
At who
That's
in the?
against the
Oh,
rules.
sorry. That's another $3. Okay, I'll put that in my.
Just put that down.
However, let me tell you the flip side, at least from my opinion. Because it's gotten so easy for anybody to put their stuff out, there's tons of noise.
Yeah.
Now you can go on YouTube and other places and just find a lot of crap.
Yeah. So
There's a lot of, and MySpace actually is where this all started. You go on MySpace and it was just a massive clusterfuck of horrible stuff.
Yeah.
And so there was no,
You can find my album on MySpace and YouTube.
At the end, yeah.
the problem is there's
On
no,
never mind.
there's no gatekeepers. There's no bar to entry. Anybody can do it.
Yeah.
And so now you need a label now to bust through all the noise.
Bust through all the noise. Then they'll market and they'll do certain things to get you in a better position.
So you're not with Sony anymore.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So
cheers to that.
yeah.
where are you? Where are things? What's
Joni from Happy Days.
oh that's
Joni.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Never mind.
Okay, 4541, Darcy, could you please edit that out?
So I'm in the process of just touring back in time and
Yep.
doing that, and then I also have another record that I finished, and so I'm in the process of figuring out the right home for that. But
when did you
because I've
finish
learned-
that?
I finished that in February of
Okay.
this year.
Right,
Yeah.
was that with Prince as well?
No, that was something I
Separate?
did on my own.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I have kind of like two more areas I want to cover with you. And so the first one is sort of the spin-off of this last bit of conversation, which is Judith at 21. What would you tell your 12-year-old self? What would Judith say to herself? Or even,
Yeah.
2007,
Don't sign to Sony.
2008,
What would I say?
before all this with This Is It and all this other
Yeah.
stuff.
What would I say?
Yeah.
I would tell myself to work on your show until it's the greatest thing ever, and just focus on that.
The craft.
Yeah, until your show is like undeniable and you're selling out tickets. That's CDs, tickets. That's where you're going to be able to sustain yourself and have longevity. I admire people who are selling tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what would you say to your 12-year-old emotional self?
Oh, 12-year-old emotional self. I would tell her to let's see, where was I at 12? Oh, yeah.
Well, somewhere around that.
Yeah. Enjoy making music. Don't enjoy it until it becomes like drinking water and it's a part of your life in a way that you can't not do it. And that's all I would say to myself. Like, enjoy it. Stop worrying about everybody else or that you're not good enough or you're not there yet. Like, don't waste yourself on negative energy like that. Just enjoy and celebrate your gift. And when you start enjoying it, that's when you're going to become like obsessed with it. And there's nothing better than a musician or a singer who just does it all
You
the
can
time.
just tell they're just...
Because then that's how you get better and you grow more, but it has to come from a place of joy.
Mm-hmm. So how much of that applies to your world now? I mean, how much of that do you actually look in the mirror and go, don't forget?
Yeah, that's what I tell myself now. Like, that's been like the biggest lesson now for me right now, because I'm under a lot of opposition right now and it's a difficult time. But what is actually helping me is the joy of it. And I remember I just met with someone recently, a really, really just a smart person kind of in the business, and he said, "Are you happy?" I said, "Oh, that's a good question." He's like, "That's the first thing. Like, once you're happy,
find
like
happy.
it'll all come together, because like this type of work, you have to. Music is not supposed to be. I mean, it is it was become a product, but initially, it's human beings expressing from the deepest parts of their soul, and it's like this universal language, this sixth sense, but almost like spiritual, and it touches people and it moves people in powerful ways. And somehow someone along the line decided a way to make money off of it. And now we have this business called the music business.
Yep.
But you can't let that cloud what it really is,
Right.
and that is the most powerful thing.
And Gene Wilder, who just passed last week, said the same thing. Like, he loved making movies, hated the movie business.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
happiness
are you
is so
happy?
important.
I'm getting there.
Yeah. And that's
you've been
great that you
through
can
a
be
lot
honest
lately.
about that too and say,
Yeah.
we all want to be happy, and a lot of people go, yeah, I'm happy, but to be honest and say, not yet.
Well, I have a
think
question,
it's
though. I have
empowering.
a question. Hello. You guys haven't
Yeah.
heard me this hour.
Hello.
Hello. When was the last time you can remember, though, being happy when you made music?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Just recently, a few days ago, I had a show in Denver, and I was truly happy because I was playing playing a lot of instruments. I'm changing my show, and I just felt like there was just an honesty about my spirit. So yes, every time I get on stage, unless I'm like mentally in a crazy place,
Yeah.
there's joy there on stage.
We want you to be happy.
We do.
Because you're so great. You're
Yeah.
so amazing. And you bring so
you.
much happiness to people that hear you and watch you. And
Thank you.
All right, last question.
Yeah.
So, because they've already joked about it, but
did.
you throw in worked with Michael Jackson, throw in working with Prince. Did you ever work with Whitney Houston by any chance?
No.
Because you would have worked with all the perfect
The
icons.
icons.
But so who's out there? Who haven't you worked with that you would really like to work with? Do you have like your wish list of different people? Like, oh God, I'd love to do a session or love to do a show or
No. At this point,
ride on the bus with
No, at this point, I appreciate anybody who moves me, and there's a long list of people, but I'm not like, oh my God, I gotta work with you. Like I'm in a place right now in my life where it's just kind of coming from here, and I don't really need to work with anybody.
And
right
I don't
now.
even mean a name. I don't even mean that. I mean,
Yeah.
like, your dad worked with Billy Preston, somebody
Yeah.
who I loved and admired. Like, something like that. Is there, like, a guitar player around town?
Oh.
Or, like, are there different people that you go, God, I just really want to work with that person?
I'd love to replace my parents with.
Uh-huh.
Finish that sentence.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, obviously, there's so many great people. There's people like Derek Trucks, that I think is just an insane guitar player. Corey Henry, who's a friend of mine, I think he's brilliant.
Do you know who he is? Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
He's a magician.
He is.
Who's that guy from London you showed me?
Jacob Collier.
Jacob Collier. Have you heard of this
Okay,
kid?
Yeah, I've heard of the name, but I don't know his
You got to
name.
check him out.
Yeah.
Quincy's just like obsessed with him
Oh,
right
yeah,
now.
cool.
But he's just like a freak.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all right, we got to kind of wrap things up.
Okay.
Thank you for being here today.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your honesty and your story and your journey. I think that when we have all these different people that come to our programs and all this sort of stuff, and you're always one of my favorites to come. I feel like there's just this old soul presence that comes along with. I mean, you're so young, and yet your influences and all this stuff come from generations, and I think it's just every time you show up, it's always such an awesome experience for us, and certainly
Thanks
for
for
the
having me.
attendees of the different programs we've had that you've come and been part of. But I appreciate you spending time with us, and
Yeah. No, thanks for having me.
yeah. So where sort of in summary here, where can people see you or find you, or what's the easiest way, whether it's social media or
social
shows or
media,
whatever?
Judith Hill at Judith_Hill is Twitter, and Instagram and Facebook. I'm always posting on what I'm doing next and things like that.
Okay. What show do you have lined up next? Anything in town?
Actually,
or
yeah, in town. I'll be at the Hollywood Bowl next week.
Just that little gig.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're doing a show tribute to Natalie Cole and Eartha Kitt and all these like, great
Right on. Yeah.
legendary music. So
Yeah.
it'll be great. It'll be a great show.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Joe.
I have to say I was particularly stellar on this episode. Because I didn't talk much. You can find me at Joe Batance on Twitter.
And that's all you're going to talk about today.
That's all I'm going to talk about today.
All right. Shannon, where can we find Joe?
Really?
I don't know.
Every
Because he
time.
listed a ton of other things he does, so I thought maybe there'd be.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
well,
not involved in any of those things.
Yeah.
He hasn't invited me to
Well, there's the drag race.
Paul or.
We'll have RuPaul's Drag Race recap. You can download that on iTunes.
I love how Joe
Yeah.
suddenly gets this radio voice when he.
I sure do, Shannon. And it's actually 83 degrees
Sweeping-
here, and the 10
Sweeping the
freeway
quarter
is.
hour.
Traffic back to you.
Yeah.
So,
Shannon with the weather.
Anyway, honey, I
All right.
I
well,
used to be seen places, and now I just am
Take antacid.
inside. Now I'm just inside a lot.
Well, all right. That's a whole other discussion. So,
But I'm starting to come out more, which you'll see me more at Ralph's and
Trader
Rite Aid.
Joe's.
Trader Joe's occasionally.
well, thank you everyone for being here today. This has been a great episode, and we hope to see Judith again in the future, either here or on something else. So,
Yeah.
thanks
I
everyone.
want to go to that show.
Oh, me too. We're going to be at the Hollywood Bowl. All right. Thanks everyone.
Awesome.
And scene.
Sing Talk. This is Sing Talk Radio.